Parents Guide to Games. We're going to take a look at some news from the last week on video games, including a study on showing that violence and video games are not correlated on the Xbox Showcase, and also the return of G4. The first little bit of gaming news I'd like to talk about is a new study that's come out from Massey University out of New Zealand, stating that violence in video games and violence in the real world have no correlation, and that people become violent playing video games. The study was done by Sam Payne, a master's student from the School of Psychology. He tested young teens, 13 and 14, having them play video games in various levels of violence. No violence, one hostile enemies were attacking, and one were non-hostile opponents, but the player is still instructed to kill them. He did this study about 10-20 minutes each time, and he found that really nothing on the and he tested after the 10-20 minutes of playing. He used them tested with the positive and negative affect scale. That affects measure mood, answer computer program, about moral dilemma of the player, and about people, and tested. Surprisingly showed that there was really no difference in that. Also compiled some other studies that had been done showing this. I think I've talked about them before, but just interesting every time they come up. People are usually really shocked, and I don't understand why. A quote from him, from Mr. Payne: parents would often comment that their children would get really angry when told they had to stop playing video games, but I wonder if parents at whatever age wouldn't have had the same reaction to someone if they told them that they had to stop watching their favorite TV show halfway through. So that's very interesting of taking this and showing, maybe that's just saying no, because I know with my own children I have that problem, and it's both the TV and playing games. I gotta stop. There is some difficulties with that they show and they talk about here of distinguishing as games get more elaborate, so like VR, more real growth. It might be hard for people at certain ages to distinguish between real world and video games. And one other thing that it does say at the end of the study, and that I have the link here in the description, you can read about all you want, is that he talks that, and he quote again from Mr. Payne: some people might say that Mario is violent because he jumps on enemies, causing them to phase out, which is actually the example I've read. Whereas another might say Grand Theft Auto 5 is violent because you can indiscriminately murder people, and then there's everything in between. And that standardizing or developing a measure of what video game violence actually is, and would be very beneficial to research. And that's one thing that I have. If you ever listened to me talk and ever met me or asked a question, or if you email I decided something, it's hard what you honestly consider violence. And that's one reason I started this channel, is that one person might say Grand Theft Auto is violent and Mario's fine, but then some people might say, well, that is violent. He does bash their heads. Mario jumps on people's heads. They hit their heads, squash, and they're gone. So that's one reason I started the channel, is that give you the option. Now what I do is I tell you the news and I show it here, and it's kind of is a little bit of opinion, but I do show, hey, there are certain studies that show that they say that they do this cause violence, but the more studies that are out are that video games and violence have no correlation in the people. You can look at this, like I said, the link in the description below. You can look at this article on it. You do more research. That's what I honestly do. I do a lot of research. I try to do as much research as I can for the time that I have for this. So it's just a very interesting study that's now come out, showing this, and good, bad, happily, people can then now fight, and not fight, I shouldn't say fight, can now look at this and decipher it and go through studies, do more studies. That's honestly, if you want to do more studies, I'm totally okay with it. But it's just interesting that more of these studies come out that say that they don't correlate. I do play violent video games myself. I am not a violent person, so but that's just me. So As more of these studies go on, like I said, and in this article it says, it'd be very interesting to see what comes up out of it. More immersion, more real world graphics, real world looking people, massive multiplayer online games. Like those are interesting studies. I don't think people are doing, but it'd be interesting to see about those studies. So again, we'll move on to the next one here. Next little bit I want to share is Xbox on Thursday had a showcase for upcoming games on the Xbox One, but also the Xbox Series X, which is coming out holiday season this year. What they did is was an hour-long presentation. It was really nicely done. I believe I watched it myself. It was really nice to see what they were looking at, what's coming out, what's going to be launched, what's going to be awesome. One really cool thing is every game I list here, Xbox has a thing called Xbox Game Pass. And Xbox Game Pass is really cool. Is you pay a monthly subscription to it. Depending on your country, it's about $20. It lets you play the game. It lets you actually download from the service, and lets you play it in a limited amount of time. As long as you pay, it's kind of like Netflix. You just can pick any game you want, and you can play it, and it's really nice. And then you can just delete it, play a different game. It's a really interesting service. So all these games I've listed are a really cool thing, and it's from Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft, of Xbox. It's not Microsoft, sorry, Phil Spencer. But he said, he's like, this was really cool. All these games are available on that, so you don't even have to pay for each individual game. You can play it, which is, the Xbox Game Pass is really cool. Hopefully do a video on it soon. I just haven't done it yet, and that's my bad. But they showed here down the list of the games: Halo Infinite, State of Decay 3, Forza Motorsports, Everwild, Tell Me Why, Ori and the Wild Wisps, the Outer Worlds DLC, Purg Ongoing, Grounded, Avowed, As Dusk Falls, Psychonauts 2, Destiny 2 Beyond the Light, Stalker 2, Warhammer 4000 Darktide, Tetris Effect, The Gunk, The Medium, New Genesis Phantasy Star Online 2, Crossfire X, and a new Fable game. So those are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 games that they showed on this hour-long presentation. It was an hour long. I watched it, like I said, hour long. And Halo got the most part because Halo is obviously Xbox's biggest franchise. They got about 15 minutes talking about it, showing gameplay. The gameplay obviously is playing in the background of this video. Showing that, and then they showed the other games, and honestly just showing everything, and that was really awesome and really cool because see what's coming out, games that are really interesting, games that I didn't know a lot of these games were coming out, which is really kind of cool and exciting, and it just showing you the next level of gaming that's coming out in this next generation during the holidays. Is it a lot of money? Yeah. Those things are not going to be cheap. Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 are going to be about $500. But just showing you the games and what they're coming to and the advancements in technology, even from this current generation to the next generation, is just outrageous. Graphics are just incredible to watch. There's going to be so much more space you can do. It's just crazy. And the presentation really wasn't on the hardware, it was on the games, and those are cool. And Xbox, coming out with their launch titles, and it was coming out and just figuring out, it's really awesome. And it was just a really interesting presentation to watch, because it was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm kind of like, ooh, it doesn't look so great, maybe I won't play that. But then they go, everything on the X is going to be on Xbox Game Pass. It was like, well, now you don't have to worry about, hey, I spent $50 in this game, I spent $50 in this game, and I really don't like it. It's included in that Xbox Game Pass. But the Xbox Game Pass is a really cool feature. I would probably tell anybody, if you got a kid and you don't want to play a lot of games, and if there's stuff on there, and the thing is the Game Pass, if there's not games on there, don't get it. But if there's games that you really like and they think are really cool, or something that they want to try, just get it a little bit. Usually in the first month you can get it at a little bit of a discount. I know usually sometimes Xbox Game Pass is $1 for the first month. You can try it over 30 days. Try it. Sometimes there's even promotions. You can try it for 3 months for $3, I think, or $2, and so that's really cool. And obviously, they're like a 3 months for $1 or something. And they do different ones like that, and I've tried it, and it's really awesome. It's just not a service that I can afford. So, but yeah, there is one thing is the paying. But if you're paying, buy a new game every month, and chances of liking it, because demos don't happen a lot. And that's what's kind of cool. Is this kind of like demos, but paying for it a little bit, and then you just nope, I don't like it, delete it. Don't have to play it again, or I like the coolest game, I can play it forever. And so that's really cool. And it's just interesting that Xbox is showing this, both what's the hardware coming and the service that they're providing. So, and the last bit of gaming news that I want to share with, and came kind of out of surprise on Friday to pretty much everybody in the gaming community, and it's kind of cool, mysterious, and awesome, is there used to be a gaming channel back in the day, G4 TV, and what it really was gaming centralized. Like, that's their main focus, was gaming, but they did do a lot of other things. Programming was a channel that was out there, and over cable TV. CSOP surged in 2014, and people were like, man, I really miss it. That was cool because I got like info on the games, playing. It was really awesome. A lot of people loved it. It did the teaser, and the teaser is playing in the background that they're coming back, and which is really interesting because when it stopped operation, it kind of left a hole in it. Still 2014, like. Online forums and all that weren't the best. Still were some magazines, but G4 was kind of that. Hey, I could watch this. I could watch some gaming programming, cool. And there isn't much known about it at this point. All it really is this teaser image that's playing in the background, and just the excitement that an announcement that they are coming back. They could be changing it up totally, not all gaming, but at this point it's just speculative. And would be really interesting, really excited to see this, because if gaming gets back in a cable channel where they show esports, they show esports on ESPN, they show esports on ABC lately. It's just interesting, but they back gets just not even just the esports people, but just gaming in general, talking about gaming, talking about different games, that's really awesome gaming focused programming, because there's more to gaming than just esports. And I think that's what some people have a hard time with. People just enjoy games. There's plenty of first person games that have nothing to do with a game, a league or all that. But that's what's really big now, are the esports, and just the channel coming back. And it's be really interesting to see how they handle it. What comes up? It looks like it's coming out in 2021. Doesn't say when, it just said it'll launch 2021. So it'll be really interesting, and it would be cool to see, like I said, just really cool to see the gaming aspect, culture getting a channel again. Just great to see that from people realize that maybe this was a mistake that they made, in 2014, and it's now it'll be 7 years. We'll come back. So. Those are just some gaming stories that I wanted to share with you, gaming news. Other than that, guys, thank you. Big shout out to bensound.com for the music. Please follow Parents Guide to Games on Facebook at Parents Guide to Games, on Twitter at ParentsG2G, and email any questions or comments to parentsg2g@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.